Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pete from the Lesser Cast, where we talk about horror movies and horror streaming shows. Me and my good friend Dr. Zayas God go to the movies. Danny goes way more than I do, and he's probably seen the trailer for the new Planet of the Apes movie like 65 times because I have,
Couple.
every time I go to a movie. But now, all of a sudden, they start showing the trailer for Maxine, the third movie in the X trilogy with X, Pearl, and now Maxine. So that's why we decided to do a Thai Westrospective. And that's Danny's idea over there. Danny, you hadn't seen the movie we're discussing first since it first came out, right? The Innkeepers?
Yeah, this is my first rewatch of it in a decade, probably a decade, because it came out in 2011.
Right.
And I remember really enjoying it, and I enjoyed it again this time. But yeah, it had been a while.
Yeah, I saw it like pretty much right when it came out. And I saw it with my wife, which is funny because I thought I saw it like in Staten Island, but that would have been impossible because it came out in 2011. I kind of still don't know what to think about this movie, so I'm hoping that my discussion with you is going to kind of clarify things for me. So you were saying right off the bat that you kind of like Sarah Paxton as Claire, the main character in it, right?
First of all, I love movies that are chamber pieces, and this movie really is that. I mean, there's I think one scene in the entire movie that takes place outside of the Yankee Peddler Inn. And that is this like random scene where she goes to get coffee and sees Lena Dunham, who has this. I think that scene is so funny because they like Lena Dunham is like this barista who's just like, so let me tell you about my personal life, and then it like jump cuts to Sarah Paxton being like, oh my god,
right.
and, but I do love chamber piece horror, like movies that take place in like one small setting and we get to explore that setting. And I also love movies with very small casts. And this movie has two main characters, basically one supporting character, and then like three other humans sporadically around. So this is my type of movie. I can see where this movie might feel. I don't even know if divisive is the word, or if, I think some people might feel that this is slow burn to an extreme because there are, you wait for inciting incidences. We talked about this with House of the Devil, where 35 minutes into an hour and a half movie,
right,
Greta Gerwig's character gets shot in the car, and you go, "Oh shit! Okay, that's what we're dealing with." Okay,
yeah.
And that's like that moment of like, "Oh my god! Okay, this is going to be a crazy movie."
Right.
With The Sacrament, there's a level of unease right away, but again, it's like 40 minutes into the movie where the little girl hands the sheet of paper that says, "Please help us." And you're like, oh, fuck. Okay, here we go. This movie doesn't even really have that moment. It's really just these two characters who are like they're like wannabe ghost hunters, and they're exploring their weird little maybe haunted motel, and that's kind of it. And
yes,
and I think that there's almost a level of charm to a movie that does not stick to like the conventions that we're used to. Like when you watch this completely different genre of movies. But the other night I couldn't sleep. I put on Forgetting Sarah Marshall, a movie I've seen many times. And I put it on because I love the movie and I figured this will be fine. I'll fall asleep in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Of course, I stayed up till 3 a.m. I watched the whole movie.
Oh my God.
And in my head, I'm going, this is a rom-com,
Yeah.
so there's got to be a scene where him and Mila Kunis have a falling out so that they can get back together at the end. And I
Right.
was shocked to realize on a rewatch that that scene happens with like 17 minutes left in the movie.
Right.
And then, like 17 minutes later, they are back together and everybody's happy.
Right.
And I was like, they didn't even need that. They didn't need to do that cliche, this isn't going to work because of this disagreement scene,
Right.
but we know we're going to get back together at the end. They didn't need to do that. It felt really tacked on. And there's room in the Innkeepers for moments like that.
Mm.
There's a moment in the movie where Pat Healy's character, who is it, Luke and Claire, right?
Right. Right. Right.
Where Pat Healy's character and Sarah Paxton's character Claire, he is very obviously, to a awkward guy like me, very very obvious that he's like trying to tell her that he's into her.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And part of my brain, because I haven't seen this movie in a long time, I'm like, is there like a love scene in this movie? Do I not remember? Is there like a scene where they make out and then get into a fight? And then no, there's not. There's like this like 1 minute moment of awkward conversation that goes nowhere, and the characters continue with what they're doing. And I think that there's a certain charm to the fact that this movie just plays out the way it does.
Mm-hmm.
Does not really have any cliche moments to it. In that regard, it almost felt like early Flanagan-esque, where it's just like Ty West wanted to, I think we talked about this, where like this movie takes place in Connecticut, same as House of the Devil. The actors from House of the Devil stayed at this hotel. They were like, there's some weird shit here, and Ty West was probably like, you know what? Let me throw together a script where, like, the hotel's closing down and the last two workers investigate the ghosts, and there is a level of charm to that. Is it for everybody? I think this is probably his least accessible movie of the 5 movies that we ranked last week, being House of the Devil, The Sacrament, X, and Pearl. I think this is probably his least accessible, in the sense that, like, I could see where people would find it slow. Some might even say boring. Nothing happens. That didn't bother me, but I could totally see where that would be a criticism of this movie.
Yeah. When I watched this, when it came out, like in 2011, I watched it with my wife, and I remember distinctly watching it and kind of just being annoyed by it. But I think that my appreciation of horror was a lot smaller than it is now. And when you see so many horror movies like we do for our channel, which we've been doing for 3 years now, you appreciate the differences in when somebody does something that's not expected. You appreciate those things. And so I liked it more now, but the thing is, I still am kind of confused by it. Like, I got this little ticker going across the bottom where it says just basically what you just said, where Ty West, when they were filming the House of the Devil, they stayed in this place where some of the crew had weird experiences in this inn. And, that inspired him to make this movie. But I really wish I could, like, listen to a director's commentary or like a podcast interview where he really talks about this movie. And maybe it's a podcast interview or something where it's like kind of a couple of years later and he's maybe talking about some of his other movies too, because I just want to know about the choices. I want to know, like, why this movie kind of plays out the way that it does, because if you look at like Pearl and the House of the Devil and this, I'd say that those three are the most similar, but they're all still very different. With Pearl, House of the Devil, and this, these are movies that there's not a lot of like violence or scares. It's more like just watching a character and you know, just kind of put yourself in their shoes and relating to them. And they're all women, right? Because Innkeepers is Claire, and then Pearl is obviously Pearl, right? And House of the Devil is
Samantha.
thank you. But the thing is, right, is that like Pearl and House of the Devil, and then X, those movies all like feel like they were made in a certain time because they're set in different times, and they're like, oh, that feels like a movie from that time. This feels contemporary, right? And I'm just like what? Why? I just still don't understand why this movie exists.
It's funny that you say that about the time, because I was reading on IMDb that this is a movie that was made in 2011, or came out in 2011, but the technology that is used for like the website looks like a website that we would have looked at when we were in college.
Yeah,
and we were in college in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
If we are the same age, I believe. So we graduated high school in 2000.
Correct.
And so we were in college basically from 2000 to 2004. And like, I think about like, if I were to go on like a ghost hunter website when I was in upstate New York in a SUNY college, this is what that website would have looked like. Here we are, it's 10 years later. And IMDb talks about how it was like intentionally done to make Luke's character, Pat Healy, like even more of like kind of like a loser, that like he doesn't know, he's not good at technology, and like his website in 2011 looks like something that would have been around a decade earlier. They also mention how like in 2011 people had cell phones. There's no cell phones in this movie. And again, though, I think that I like that because the Yankee Peddler Inn as a location feels like this old timey establishment, and like the use of a lot of modern technology in it. Like I feel like another director would have come in and would have been like, all right, we're gonna do ghost hunter stuff, and would have like in Nope, they would have like installed all these like high-tech security cameras and high resolution lenses and infrared technology. And you basically have these two characters using like Ghostbuster PKE readers while walking around in the dark. I also just like the two characters. I think they feel like genuine characters. Well, I had mentioned to you that like Sarah Paxton's character in this movie, not to be like pervy, but like she was like, her character feels like the type of girl I was like into when I was in from like 16 to 23. That was like my type. Like cute blonde, short hair, like into nerdy stuff. Like like I dated a girl in college because she walked up to me and said, nice shirt. And I was wearing an Evil Dead shirt. And I was like, oh, and that's who kind of Sarah Paxton reminded me of watching this. And I like their interactions. I like that they don't push a romance angle, even though, Pat Healy being a little bit older than her is like obviously kind of weird and, putting it out there. I wrote down some of the quotes because I thought the dialogue was really good between them. I love when she has her negative interaction with Lee, Reese Jones, played by Kelly McGillis.
Top Gun's own Kelly McGillis. Yes. Who
is a retired actress, now medium, staying at the hotel. She goes up to like fangirl, and when she comes downstairs, she's like really down because they had like a fairly negative interaction.
Yeah.
And I love this line by Pat Healy where he says, I don't know a lot, but I do know a little about a lot of things. And she goes, "Oh, well, you're always so negative." And he goes, "No, I'm not negative. I'm a realist. If you expect nothing, then you go through life being pleasantly surprised." And I went, "Shit, that's kind of like my fucking philosophy on life." I always used to joke with people that I believed in optimistic pessimism, which is
Okay.
when you expect bad things to happen, uh, it makes even the small good things feel so much better.
Hmm.
And I thought his character kind of resonated with me also. So
Right.
yeah, like it's a weird little movie where nothing much happens, and
Right.
these two characters investigate like hauntings in this hotel. But I liked it because I like their characters, and I I do agree with you in the sense that now that I have rewatched it,
Yeah.
this is probably not going to be one that I run back to rewatch.
Right.
Whereas, like, if Charlotte came in and said, "I want to watch House of the Devil," I'd be like, "Let's go,
Right.
let's
Right. Right.
right now."
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I don't want to rewatch The Sacrament for a different reason.
Correct. Ditto.
Um, but like the Mia Goth X trilogy, which I guess it's the X trilogy because you go from one X to three X's. I guess it's
Yeah.
the X trilogy. But
Yes.
those are movies where, X has a lot of, sex in it for obvious reasons. But I
Yeah.
feel like it's not gratuitous enough that like I would prevent Charlotte from watching it. Pearl, I love, and I think that's a movie that I would let her watch and that I've watched multiple times.
Yeah.
Uh, so I do kind of agree with you that this is probably his least accessible and least rewatchable movie, but
Yeah.
I still enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I it's funny when we do these recordings, Danny, because like you kind of make like several points, and I'm like, okay, I want to talk about that one right there, and then you kind of always bring it to like oh, this is we can kind of wrap it up right here with what I just said. Like this is like the way we could, and then I'm like, okay, well, can we like backtrack it,
Yeah.
like, but I was gonna say that like there's one scene in particular, right, where they are talking about discovering the ghost. They're talking about Madeline O'Malley, and Claire is like wearing a sheet, and she's poked holes in the for eyes in the sheet, and she says like "woo," and I remember watching that when it first came out, and I was like, oh, this movie's fucking annoying. But I watched it this time, and I was like, oh, this movie's kind of charming. I think charming might be a good word to describe it. Like I think at the time I thought like the acting was like a little over the top, and it seemed like kind of like fake. Like I didn't feel like the acting clicked, but I appreciate it in retrospective. I certainly appreciate Pat Healy way more than I did the first time around. Like I kind of always thought like, okay, he's playing this kind of nerdy guy, and he's kind of pathetic. But Pat Healy, we talked about him a couple of times on this channel. One of the main times we talked about him was when he was in We Need to Do Something, the Max Booth III book that got made into a movie, and he's fantastic in that. He was in Better Call Saul, like since we reviewed that, and I mean he's in a whole bunch of things, but I liked him way more in this. And then I think like when I first saw the movie and I saw that scene with Lena Dunham, I was like, this seems so fake the way that she's talking. Like I didn't like her dialogue. But then this time around, I'm like, that's fucking Lena Dunham. That's weird. And I remember when I was looking up one of the characters or one of the actors, like they were also in this movie Tiny Furniture, which is like Lena Dunham's first movie. So I'm kind of assuming that like she
Lena
kind of
Dunham also has, I think she is like the voice of the 911 operator in House of the Devil.
that's right. I saw
So
that too.
she's obviously connected to this group.
Right.
This movie was again, it was produced by Dark Sky Films and Glass Eye Picks. Glass Eye is Larry Fessenden's production company.
Yeah.
And John Sparadakis, who I mentioned in the last video, who has like a bit part in House of the Devil. He also has a bit part in this, and he was just in Larry Fessenden's Blackout. He plays the pastor in that movie. And Larry Fessenden actually has a on-camera role in the movie we're going to talk about next,
Yes.
which Ty West is in as an actor,
Yeah.
made with his friends and like colleagues in like the Mumblegore horror group.
Right.
It's really like the Mumblegore All Stars.
Right. And see, I'm super excited to talk about Larry Fessenden too, because I didn't really connect the dots until I started watching these movies. You know, he's in the movie we're going to talk about next, right? Um, but he's in that fucking Barbara Crampton movie where there's like a vampire, right? And like she
Jacob
becomes a
Flight, yeah,
yeah, okay. He's like the main, he's her husband.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, once I saw him in this and I saw him in Your Next, I'm like, wait a minute, is this like a
He's also in Brooklyn 45, where he's the
yes,
lead.
yes,
He's like
yes,
the guy who's organized the seance.
yes.
He's also in Ted Gagan's We Are Still Here, which also has Barbara Crampton.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this, like from Ty West, you go into the Mumblegore, and then you go back into Glass Eye Picks, and you end up with this like extended family
Yep.
of like low budget but really good indie horror filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it you do notice those dominoes as you watch more and more of these movies.
Yeah, and you know, I actually kind of really like when you have these like clusters of people that like collaborate with each other and they're in each other's movies and stuff. And you know,
Again,
I mean,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm gonna let you finish. But it does. We started this channel because of Mike Flanagan, and look at the Flana family that he has built over the years, where it's like if Mike Flanagan announces a new project, you already in your head start to go, oh well, Kate Siegel, of course.
right,
Raul Coley will be there.
right,
Michael Trucco will be there.
right.
Samantha Sloyan will probably be there and make you want to fucking kill her. It's that's what happens when you get these like acting, these directors or these production groups where like they have a tight knit group, and it's great, this isn't like a new thing. Like you go back, there's a reason. I just rewatched. I just went to the theater to rewatch a little movie called Spider-Man from 2002.
I heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you've heard of it. Maybe you have a comic books YouTube channel, Comic Books Transformed.
Thank
But
you.
like there's a reason that Bruce Campbell gets to say the Amazing Spider-Man because it's a Sam Raimi movie.
Right,
So,
right.
so these like director, actor, producer groups, they've always been around, and it's just we start to recognize them more and more as the more movies we watch.
Yeah. I mean, and like even that Bruce Campbell reference they just made with Sam Raimi, that reminds you that like Sam Raimi was like friends with like the Coen brothers, and like there's like kind of cross pollination there too with some of their stuff. So I mean, yeah, I love that kind of stuff, and that makes me just in general appreciate this movie more. I think that we should just go ahead and rank all the Ty West directed movies that we've watched. And I think it's still just 5 for me,
Mm-hmm.
but I just wanted to rewatch this, so I had it with a fresh set of eyes. But
Uh,
I'll go first. Good.
Before we do
Yeah.
the ranking, the very end of this movie, did you notice the? It's very hard to see, and I had to rewatch it. But did you
Okay.
notice the Claire ghost in the
Yeah.
room before the door slams?
Yeah. Well, I think I actually noticed it the first time too.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I'm like looking and I'm looking, and the camera lingers and lingers. I do want to say I feel like we've kind of like dismissed this movie. There are a few genuinely creepy scenes in this movie.
Totally agree. Yeah.
Like the old man in room 353.
Yes.
Everything about him
Mm-hmm.
is genuinely creepy. And then and obviously the scene that is like on the posters for this movie when Sarah Paxton like lays down to try to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden Madeline O'Malley sits up next to her.
Yeah.
Like that's also a legit great moment, like filmed almost completely in the dark.
Yeah.
So very unsettling. And it's also a movie that dares to basically kill its final girl,
Mm-hmm.
which
Mm-hmm.
is fairly shocking. Like I would not have, I would have like paid money in a bet that if you would have asked me 20 minutes into this movie, one of these two characters dies, I would have been like, oh, Pat Healy. Like
Yeah. Right.
Luke is going to die, Claire
Right.
is going to live. But no, it fairly, shocking that it does that. I also thought there's the really good moment at the very end where the camera pans down the hallway before turning towards the door to Claire's room. And there are photos on the wall. And again, it's because I haven't seen the movie in probably 12, 13 years. I went, are they going to zoom in on the photos? And are they going to pull a Shining ending? Is like Claire going to be in the picture?
Right.
Like 1922, you were always here.
Right.
And
Right.
then
Right.
and I went, oh, okay, good. But yeah, go ahead with your ranking because mine is very simple. Mine hasn't changed since last week.
Okay, ditto. Mine hasn't changed since last week. This is my number 5. Then there is The House of the Devil, then X, Pearl, and then The Sacrament. Same as last week.
I think mine is the same too. Innkeepers at 5. And then it becomes hard because I want to put The Sacrament down at 4 only because I never want to watch it again. But in terms of like what I think of the movie, it's probably much closer to the top.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like the movies I'm going to rewatch, probably House of the Devil and then X and Pearl. Pearl being at the top, just because, yeah. I still think Mia Goth was robbed of an Oscar nomination for that movie. So
Agreed. Totally agreed. Yeah. And I'm super excited about Maxine too. I loved seeing the trailer in the theater. There's something so magical about seeing a trailer in the theater versus just seeing it on your phone or on your computer. The screen's
and
just so much bigger. The sound is just pumping. Go ahead.
I know it's a cliche phrase that like everybody uses in like modern day social media speak, but it's hard for me not to use this because I go to the movies a lot. I watch a lot of horror movies in the theater. And so I see 4, 5, 6 different horror movie trailers. But man, we're eating good this year. Like is just I have a YouTube short up that I did Wednesday night. I got to see an advanced screening of Abigail. Abigail is a lot of fun.
Okay.
But then there's Cuckoo, there's Long Legs.
Yeah.
Did you see the new M. Night Shyamalan trailer, The Trap, with Josh Hartnett?
I shared that with you and Chris.
Yeah, I forgot who shared. Yes, you shared that. It looks great. His daughter, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, has a movie called The Watchers coming out, which looks excellent. The movie Sting is in theaters now. Charlotte and I saw that. I have a short of that up on the channel. It is a good year for horror movie fans, both in terms of mainstream stuff and a lot of this indie stuff. Late Night with the Devil just premiered on Shudder, and that had a small theatrical run where it did very, very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, Maxine is just another one of these, but that trailer looks so freaking good. Like it looks like the culmination of everything Ty West has been building to with X, with Pearl. The music sounds great. The cast looks amazing. I'm really looking forward to that.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And I actually am going to watch Late Night with the Devil tonight with my wife. I haven't seen it yet. And it's funny. We started last night. And Chris's joke that he made, comparing it to the Family Guy joke, like there's like 20 fucking studios that they mentioned at first, and I'm like, wow, this just keeps going. And then eventually the movie starts, but we didn't end up watching it because our daughter came down and we were talking to her for a little bit, and then we started watching this other show called Baby Reindeer. Have you seen that one yet? You know what I'm talking about?
I've seen a clip of it, and it looks weird and the type of intense that I don't particularly like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then you
Did you
shouldn't
guys
watch
watch
this.
Beef?
Fuck yeah, of course
Because
watch
it
Beef.
reminds me of that, and I got like I watched like 2 episodes of Beef, and I was like, I think I have to stop watching this. Like
Oh,
Athena already doesn't like driving with me because I get very angry in the car in New York traffic.
yeah.
And
Oh God, horrible.
so like the idea of like a show like Baby Reindeer or Beef like hits a little close to home, and I don't know if I can deal with it.
Yes, yes. Well, I like that kind of stuff because it's like quirky and weird, and it's like not the type of story you normally see. Like I wouldn't say Beef is like a story that you normally see,
Mm-hmm.
and Baby Reindeer is not the kind of story you normally see. But to kind of segue back into what we're discussing, this next movie that we're talking about, it's not written and directed by Ty West, but he's
No.
in it for like I don't know, like 3 minutes or so, and then he gets killed off. This next movie is, of course, You're Next. It is like I'd never seen You're Next, and then all of a sudden I got this opportunity because we're doing this Ty West retrospective. I fucking loved this movie.
Yeah. This
Um,
movie holds up.
yeah,
And I will tell you, this is like top 5 to 10 movie theater experiences for me because I saw this in the theater, and there is a scene in this movie where I audibly screamed with glee. Like the scene happens, and I literally in the movie theater went, "Oh shit, yeah!" Like,
okay. Well, here's the thing, right? Spoilers for this movie.
yeah.
So, like, you guys, this movie came out a long time ago, and
So yeah, let me just mention, if anybody, blah, blah, blah. Innkeepers is on Peacock, streaming free on Peacock. You're Next. I rented for $3-4 on Vudu, and because I thought I had a physical copy of it, but I ended up not having one.
yeah.
But yeah, if you've not seen You're Next, it is essential modern horror movie viewing.
So, the scene where you like screamed with glee, is that when the Sharni Vincent, her character Erin, puts the blender on the guy's head and turns it? Okay.
Fucking blender.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I kind of thought that, because I saw it coming a little bit, but in my head I'm like, they're not going to do that. And then when she plugged it in, I went, oh my God, they're doing it.
Yes. That part was pretty fucking awesome. I watched this by myself. I watched it on my computer. It would have been a lot of fun to watch in an audience like you did. It's just like filled with all these faces that, like, honestly, since we've been doing this Ty West perspective, it's like, oh, it's that guy who I've seen now in 3 fucking movies with Ty West, right? So I mean, let's go through the people, and then we can talk about the plot and hit some of those high moments. So Barbara Crampton is in this, and I have not seen, I'm sure I've only seen like half, maybe even a third of the Barbara Crampton movies that you have seen. But every single Barbara Crampton movie that I've seen, I've thoroughly enjoyed.
So I think this is like a watershed moment for her, because this is like one of the first times where she was cast as like mom. And if you're as old as we are, like, it's very weird to watch like these like beautiful women from like the 80s who were like the sex symbols of their horror movies, who are now like mom, and they have like adult children in
right.
Which is why you brought up Jacob's Wife earlier. Jacob's Wife was a like awesome return for her to like, where she like starts the movie as like kind of like, I'm an older woman now, but then as she's like becoming a vampire, she's like, it revitalizes her character, and she gets to like be the leading, femme fatale again.
Right.
And last year she was in Suitable Flesh, and she's got some great moments in that movie as well.
Hell yeah.
The woman does not age. Like she's
No.
playing like probably a woman in her 50s in this movie. I know that she's actually in her mid 60s now, but
Yeah,
she
yeah.
looks amazing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
she looks like she's like it's 1993. I
Yeah.
I jokingly always say that somewhere in Barbara Crampton's attic there is a rotting picture of Barbara Crampton,
Yes,
uh,
yes.
because it doesn't make sense that she still is as beautiful as she is. Like
Yep.
aging just doesn't affect her.
Yes.
Uh, but I
Well,
thought she was really good in this, even though she basically just has like that, kind of stereotypical crying, sad, screaming mom face.
yes, yes, yes. And she gets killed off pretty early compared to the other characters too.
Mm-hmm.
And and you feel bad for her throughout the movie. Um, it's funny because one person that hasn't aged as well as her, I mean, who has, but Larry Fesden, who is her co-star and Jacob's wife. And it's funny because he looks way younger in this movie than he does in Jacob's wife. And I mean, I guess rightfully so, because it's like over a decade between the two movies. But once I had to look him up for this movie, I was like, oh shit, this guy has had his fingers in a lot of different pies. And did he just make that fucking movie Blackout that you
Yeah,
watched?
he's
Yeah, yeah,
actually he's actually done. He's kind of like low key done modern remakes of Universal horror. He has a vampire movie called Habit that came out, I think, in the 90s. He did a pretty good Frankenstein movie called Depraved, which I'm sure is on VOD somewhere, just a few years ago. And now he just did Blackout, uh, which just released to VOD about a week ago. And so he's got a werewolf, a vampire, and a Frankenstein monster movie, along
yes,
with countless other movies in his filmography. He's an actor, he's a producer, he's the head of Glass Eye Pix. He's like the king of indie New York horror cinema.
yeah.
Um, I've gotten to meet him a couple times, just like at events. I bumped into him one year at Comic Con, and I was just like, Larry Fessenden. And he was like, hey. And he took a picture with me, and he was like, super cool. Yeah, he is like, if you are in the New York horror scene, he is like up there status wise. And it's just cool to see him, like, even in this like little scene here, getting to like be that kind of like first on screen kill. By the way, do you know the girl that he's uh, having some stuff with at the beginning of this movie? We actually just covered her because she was the lead in The Seating.
Oh, really? Oh
Yeah,
shit. Okay. Damn, I did not put those two together. That's
I
cool.
because I remember when I was looking stuff up for The Seating, I was like, she was in Your Next. I don't remember that. And I
Yeah, yeah.
she's yeah, she's the girl in the opening scene who ends up technically being the first kill off screen before Larry takes it. But you mentioned uh the horror all stars, right? Yeah, I saw the ticker. It's like the Mumble Gore all star team in this movie.
Like we have
So
Joe Swanberg, the Sacrament's own Joan Swanberg.
so yeah, so AJ Bowen, who is in both House of the Devil and The Sacrament, he is in this movie as one of the leads. His brother in the movie is played by Joe Swanberg, who was the cameraman in The Sacrament, and who's a director, editor, writer as well. His sister is Amy Simetz, who plays the girl, the sister who lures them down to Eden Parish in The Sacrament.
Mm-hmm.
It's directed by Adam Wingard, and
Mm-hmm.
written by Simon Barrett. They worked with Ty West on the original VHS. They were like contributing writers and directors to that. I think they also did worked on the ABCs of horror.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they're all part of this group. And of course, you mentioned Ty West is in this movie for maybe 3 minutes. He's introduced. He gets like one awkward scene of dialogue where he's like talked down to by Joe Swanberg's character, who is an asshole in this movie.
He sure
He
is.
plays, and he even has an asshole character name. His name is Drake. Like,
Oh,
oh, there has never been like a nice guy named Drake. It's just like rich,
yeah.
snooty asshole name. And
Yes.
he's like talked down to for being a filmmaker. And then he notices something going on outside, stands up, walks to the window, and promptly gets crossbowed to the head.
Right.
Yes. And Tariq, aka Ty West, is the first victim of the house.
Yeah.
And you know, here we go again. We have that chamber, you know, chamber horror. You know, everybody in basically one house. And again, this movie obviously has a huge ensemble cast. But this movie kind of reminded me in the setting to another Flanagan movie, Hush, where you have this like nice big house that you can explore, but then the protagonist also is able to get out of the house, kind of run through the woods, deal with the woods. Also feels very, obviously because of the masks, feels very Strangers-esque.
Right.
Speaking of that, there's a new Strangers movie coming out this year.
Yeah, right.
Directed by Rennie Harlan.
Yeah, that's a little weird, but probably be awesome too.
Yeah. What I love the most about this movie, and what I loved about it back in 2013, it was made in 2011, but it came out in 2013. And I know you're going to be mad at me for bringing it up, but it's what I loved. It's what I loved about Terrifier 2 also.
Oh, okay. What? Okay, what?
And it's that you don't get instantly all-time great Final Girls that often in horror.
Okay.
That's why when people bring up Final Girls, they still go back to Laurie Strode. They still go back to Nancy Thompson. They still go back to, you know, Kirsty in the Hellraiser movies. I mean, these are movies from the late 70s and early 80s. You know, the girls from the first few Friday the 13th movies. We're talking 1978 to like 88. Okay. 30 to 40 years ago now. Sharni Vincent in this movie, instantaneously, from the minute the credits start rolling, you're like, well, that's it. She's top 5. Like, she is just the most badass female character that I've seen in a movie in years at that point. Yeah. And, you know, that's why I loved Sienna in Terrifier 2. I thought that she was great in that movie. Lauren Lavera. She was like, instantaneously, I was like, God, I love that character. God, I can't wait for her to come back in the next movie. And that's how I felt instantaneously about Erin, played by Sharni Vincent in this movie.
Yeah, I definitely agree. As you can tell by the ticker that I made for our episode today, she has the same kind of, you know, efficiency and ruthlessness and power as like Ripley or Buffy, to where like she essentially takes out like every single one of the killers, and there's a lot of killers in this movie too.
Yeah, I'm trying to, like, in my head, I'm trying to do the math. I think she kills 6 people in this movie, which is more than any of the actual villains. She kills all 3 of the masked characters. She kills obviously the Z and Felix, and then she kills Crispin. Right. And I guess you could actually add 7 because she probably accidentally kills the cop.
Yeah, right.
By using a incredibly similar trick that Nancy uses in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
Except with an axe instead of a sledgehammer.
Right. You know, and while you were saying that, Danny, I was thinking that like Final Girls obviously the reason why some of them are so notorious or people are so beloved is because they're often played by like very talented actresses that are very good at their part. I'd say that's the first part of the formula. The second part of the formula is that their character is written in such a way to where they are more wise than the rest of the characters in the movie. Like they're just onto things. They're more clever. They come up with better solutions, so they're much more interesting. Even though the threat they're facing is like much more intimidating, and you would think, oh, there's no way they could survive against this. Ripley can't survive an alien, or you know, Laurie Strode can't survive against Michael Myers, but they figure out ways to stay alive. But then I think that the final part of the final girl greatness formula is that like what they're facing is something that is so efficient at killing people and so intimidating, and you kind of hate it because it's like winning so much that like when the girl finally wins, you're like, yeah, fuck yeah, like get that. Like these killers, when I had heard about this movie, the description that I was told was that the movie was a bunch of killers come to a house, they take on this family, but then the tables get turned and the family starts taking out the killers. And so I was actually expecting other members of this family to still be alive and that they were going to like capture the killers, maybe tie them up and, you know, torture them a little bit too. That's not this movie. Like whoever
No.
described that to me, they were wrong. This movie is basically like she's the main character. There's people in the family that are on the same side as the killers. They actively kill their own family members at different
So
points.
I wanted to ask you, as somebody who had not seen this movie,
Yeah.
were you surprised to find out that there were people in the family that were in on it, or was that something you suspected kind of early on?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that like I predicted it, but I would say that when you find out that Felix betrayed his family, it's not like, whoa, this is a shocking twist. Like it kind of makes sense. I think the family fortune is based on the fact that they're connected to like they're arms dealers essentially, like right? Don't they create weapons or whatever?
He mentions that his dad works for like an arms he does like the accounting for like an arms firm or something in the car way there. But they don't really talk about it the rest of the movie. And it's just a very you just assume that they're like a family that has money.
Oh
and
yeah.
They mention of like, oh, when I get my inheritance, you'll each get X $100,000 throughout, you know.
Right, exactly. The inheritance becomes a big thing in like the third act of the movie. I really did enjoy when you found out that Felix was a traitor to the family. And I also wanted to point out that Nicholas Tucci, that played Felix, he actually died like in 2020. He had pancreatic cancer. I was like, oh shit, you know, because I'd seen him in other things too, you know.
Yeah, I read I was looking up some of the cast that I didn't know, and I was it's really fucked up. He died at like a week before his 39th birthday, which anybody who doesn't make it to the age that I feel I am now, I know, because I while I'm older, I don't feel old, and
right.
Then again, I'm going to the gym later, so I'll probably feel old later.
There you go. Nice. But let's just talk about some of the things that make this movie work and what makes it so good, right? So the killers, you don't really know what you're facing right away. Obviously, with like the promotional material, the advertising, you see those masks, those animal masks. So you're like, okay, it's a home invasion movie, and these people are wearing these masks. But you don't really see them until they've taken out a couple of people. And they take out some people with crossbows, and crossbow arrows. Then there's this really, really great fucking sequence where they've put like a garrote, or like I think that's how you say it, garrote wire across the front door. So you have this sequence where the one daughter is like, I can run really fast. I'll run and get us help. You know, I just have faith in me. And they kind of build up the music, and she's kind of running like slowly, and she just runs right into a fucking garrote wire across the neck. I think that's a great moment.
That reminds me of like I forgot how funny it is watching the siblings like sibling rivalry just never goes away. And Joe Swanberg is such an asshole. Like he like over the dinner table, like he like insults his sister's boyfriend, like because he's a low budget filmmaker. He insults his brother and his girlfriend because he calls, you know, he was a professor and he like started dating his TA, and he's like, oh, unprofessional. And like it, and while this like big sibling fight is happening, Ty West is like, there's a guy with a mask and a crossbow outside. Maybe we should go get him right to the head, you know?
Right.
And it, you know, we talked about a lot of the Ty West movies, like taking a long time to get started. This movie does not. This movie is like opening scene. Okay, boom. You know what you're dealing with. But then it's like 24 minutes into the movie, Ty West gets a crossbow in the head, and the shit is on from that moment on. The movie was directed by Adam Wingard. Wingard got his start with Mumblegore. This is like considered one of like the crowning achievements of Mumblegore horror. But now he's like the big budget king. Like he's bouncing around with Godzilla and King Kong now for 2 movies.
Right.
So, which is crazy. You know, so it's really crazy that this movie is Adam Wingard, basically made in 2011. So we're talking 13 years ago. Adam Wingard directs this movie. Ty West is in it. Ty West had just done The Innkeepers and House of the Devil. He's about to do The Sacrament. And then here we are 14 years later. Adam Wingard just released Godzilla X Kong, which made a ton of money and almost guarantees that there will be yet another one of those movies that we will also cover on this channel. Yeah. And Ty West, after almost a decade of nothing of note in the horror field other than like directing some sporadic episodes of horror shows, is about to release the third part of a horror trilogy that all came out within the last 2.5 years. And they're like back, you know, or they, you know, they've never left. And it's crazy that, you know, we're looking back at like this era of horror filmmaking from a decade ago, over a decade ago.
Yeah.
And God, 2011 and 2013 are over a decade ago. Jesus. Yeah. But we're still talking about them today. You know, the other, you know, like Joe Swanberg is still active. Amy Seimetz is still active. I don't know if they make as much horror content as Wingard and Ty West do, but the fact that we're talking about these filmmakers, you know, almost 15 years later, speaks to their talent, their adaptability, and, you know, the timelessness of some of these movies. Like, I genuinely think we are now almost a quarter of a century into the 2000s. I think You're Next for me is probably, if I were to rank the 10 best horror movies of the past 25 years, there's a strong case for You're Next in that list.
Wow.
I genuinely, I thought that when I saw it. I just rewatched it. I forgot. I asked Charlotte, I was like, do you want to come watch this great movie called You're Next? She's like, Dad, we watched that movie like 2 years ago. I was like, oh, sorry. I forgot how many movies I showed you.
Yeah.
But I love the final girl, some of the kills in this movie. I mean, the blender scene is for me an all-time great horror movie kill. The connecting the dots for all of those horror filmmakers and horror personalities: Barbara Crampton, Larry Fessenden, Adam Wingard, Ty West, Amy Seimetz, AJ Bone, Joe Swanberg. It's like, it's so much fun. And I remember seeing a trailer for this movie way back when and thinking, they just made The Strangers. This movie is just going to be another Strangers movie. It's people in masks, home invasion. And this movie, I think the intention was they're going to come and they're going to think it's a Strangers movie. And then they twist that. And yes, it's a home invasion movie, but it's also a, empowered final girl with the twist of like, we invited the strangers to come in and kill our family.
Right.
There's some genuinely funny and memorable like dialogue scenes when Z pushes Felix on the bed and goes, "I want you to fuck me on the bed next to your dead mother." I like had to pause the movie because I was laughing so hard. Like, what a fucking wild line of dialogue to write.
Right.
Simon Barrett, the writer, he plays one of the
the
masked killers. Just awesome. Like the scene where she picks up the axe, and it's like you could just freeze that moment and you're like, put that on the fucking box, put that on the poster, and you're good.
Yeah. I mean, that is the thumbnail for this episode, is her with the axe, just like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is really good. I mean, it makes me appreciate Simon Barrett too. And I know that him and Adam Wingard have like collaborated a lot. When he wrote this movie, he had the idea for it because home invasion movies were the only genre or subgenre that actually scared him. Like he said that, like, he's not really scared of other subgenres anymore, but home invasion movies do. And this movie is scary, or the key thing is it's suspenseful, but it's also very funny, like you said, and it's like really rewarding with the kills. I think you did your good job of kind of tying it all together there. So we can kind of wrap it up with Ty West for today. I actually would go back and watch his earlier movies too, just because I'm very like intrigued by him right now, and I'm really digging his movies. But maybe next time we do Late Night with the Devil, would you want to do that with me, the two of us?
Yeah, I would love to give that a rewatch. I just started my spring break here in New York City, so I am trying to commit to getting back into my living room where I could watch Shudder on an actual television, since my freaking Roku TV app does not work.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of Shudder content that I am dying to catch up on, and I'd love to rewatch Late Night with the Devil. I think that's a movie that Charlotte might enjoy also. So yeah, we could definitely talk about that in more detail next week. If you and Shari get a chance, I think Pepper would probably really like Abigail.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's very bloody, but it's very bloody in the sense that like Ready or Not was bloody. It's same filmmakers, Radio Silence. Young girl vampire, a fun cast.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a review of that up on the channel now. Charlotte and I are also watching Chucky, which season 3 is back, and it is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Chucky just used the president's nuclear codes to launch a nuclear weapon at the North Pole. And if your reaction, yes, it's that fucking crazy. That's where we have gone in the Child's Play / Chucky franchise. We are launching nuclear weapons. Next week, Brad Dourif is going to be on the show as a ghost. I'm so fucking excited. It's so good. We love that show, and when I'm doing my weekly episode reviews, but then Charlotte and I are going to do a season 3 recap at the end. I think there's only 2 more episodes, so that's very exciting.
Nice, man. Well, yeah. I mean, you just keep putting stuff out every single week. I always see in my feed, just there's Danny again. So if you guys like Danny and the content he's putting out, then make sure that you are subscribed to the Lastercast. We have a lot more stuff coming up. We've just got our summer of horror started. So he's on his spring break. But, make sure you guys come back next week. We'll do Late Night with the Devil. And we will see you guys